When it comes to the real estate market here in Utah and nationally, there's a lot of information out there. And I think there's actually a lot of misconceptions about what's happening in the market right now, what's going to happen, and what could actually change those things, right? We've seen prices at crazy high levels. We've seen interest rates at crazy high levels. Everybody's saying, oh yeah, interest rates are going to come down. People were saying a year ago, oh, by the end of 2023, interest rates are going to be coming down. And here we are, the last couple of months, they've been rising. They've risen almost 1.5 percentage points over just the last couple of months. And all those people are wrong. I think there's a lot of people out there who are unrealistic about where the market's at, where it's headed, and what's actually going on here in the market. With that being said, we're going to jump into a ton of information here in this video. My name's Cody Steck, your favorite Utah realtor. We're going to cover a ton of info here on this video. If you're looking at buying, selling, or investing real estate here in Utah, my team and I would love to help, whether you're looking in Salt Lake City, Park City, Lehi, Saratoga Springs, any of the cities, even down in southern Utah, we'd love to help with that. My information's here on the screen. Call, text, or email anytime. And with that said, let's jump into some information here on my screen. So like I said just a minute ago, interest rates have been climbing. I remember this time last year, people were saying, hey, rates are climbing. We're going into September, October, November of 2022. And people were saying, oh yeah, by spring or by summer of 2023, interest rates will be coming back down, right? That's back here in this period. When we were seeing August 12th, 2022, we had interest rates at 5.3%. We climbed to 6%. We climbed all the way up to 7.3% in October of 2022. Yes, interest rates did come down slightly to the low 6% range, but look at this. Basically, since April of this year, they've been on a steady climb all the way up here to roughly 8% where we're at today. If we take a look at this information, let's get this zoomed in here a little bit closer. This is for a standard 30-year fixed loan, right? So right now you're sitting at roughly 8%. They did tick down over the last couple of days, but had another huge jump up here just today. So we're sitting at roughly 8% on the interest rate. And that's actually causing some very interesting things to happen in the real estate market. If we jump over here and take a look at the number of sales that are happening, we can see sales are just getting absolutely decimated. The number of home sales that are happening here in our market is absolutely crashing because we're dealing with high prices and we're dealing with high interest rates. However, there's a couple reasons why these things are not changing and why they possibly might not change. We're going to talk about that here in just a second. Before we do that, let's continue on here and take a look at some of this data right here. All right, so if we zoom in here a little bit, we're going to take a look at this sales data right here. The search criteria is just the state of Utah, so I haven't narrowed this down at all. We're looking at all home types from beginner homes to luxury homes. We're looking at single family, condos, townhomes, and everything in between. If we take a look at this, this is all of the homes across the MLS. Back here in October 2022, we have the count, which is the number of home sales that actually happened. We had 2,680 home sales. Right now, October 23rd, I'm filming this here on October 25th. We have a couple days left in the month. Let's say we've got the end of this week and I think maybe Monday, which is Halloween. So we might only have a couple of sales that happen then. We're sitting at 1,900 home sales for this month. By the end of the month, we might close out at about 22, maybe 2,300 home sales for the month of October. So home sales are getting decimated if we compare to last year. Now, we do always see a little bit of a decline going into the winter months. November, 2,390. December was actually a little bit higher at 2,561, but January was just crazy low, right? 1,991 home sales in January. We did see it pick up going into February, March, April, May, and then it has slowly started to decline from that point. June, 34, 3,000, 34, 2,800, 1,900. You can see that this is a huge decrease based on what's happened with interest rates, right? If we go from August, which means that the people who locked in on a new contract in August actually closed on their home in September. So if we take a look at this, you can see this big drop here. And again, the other big drop here going into into October. If we take a look at these last 2 months and compare it to what's happened with interest rates during that time, right? If we come over here, let's just look at August. August is when rates really started to climb. Going back here to kind of the beginning where it's up roughly 7%, went up to 7.5%, back down to low sevens, and then we've just been basically straight up from there, sitting at roughly 8% here today. So home sales are just getting absolutely decimated. But let's take a look at what's actually happening with sales data, because this is the other part of the equation that is not being talked about. This is going to be your sales price, right? Your median sales price for all homes. This is kind of the middle ground of what homes are selling for. Looking at last year, we were at 490,000, and this year we're at 488,000. So home sales have not moved at all, right? The home sale prices, right? We were at 480. We dropped slightly here going into January. 477, then down to 457, back up to 465, then 480. We kind of jumped around. We were at 475, hit 490 in May, and then actually up to basically 499 in June. And we've been hovering around this 490 mark for the last couple of months. So roughly the last 5 months or so, home prices have really not shifted at all. If you look at this is the ratio of what homes are actually selling for based on what they're listed for. So we are seeing a little bit of negotiation by buyers in most cases, but the number of days on market is still incredibly low. We're sitting at 21 days, 24, 29, 31 days on market. And this is driven largely because of the low demand that we're seeing in the market right now. People who already own homes, or people who have homes, whether it's a rental property, a second home, or maybe it's their own primary home, they're choosing not to sell the property because they're locked in on such a low interest rate. They probably have a 2.5%, 3.5% interest rate on their home, and they don't want to give that up. They don't want to give it up because they can just rent out the property, maintain that interest rate, and use it as a smart financial investment. So people are choosing not to sell their properties during this time for that exact reason. Now we're going to take a look at a couple of notes from some different articles, but we're going to cover some very important information that nobody else is talking about, as well as my own personal opinion about what's happening in the Utah real estate market here in a little bit. So give me just 1 minute to jump through some of these articles. We're going to talk about some things here, and then I'm going to give you some overview on what's happening in the market, what could change things to happen, or what could cause them to change from where they're at right now, and then also some very controversial topics and issues that people are not talking about because they don't want to face the reality of the market that we're in. Okay, so that being said, let's jump over here. We're going to take a look at this article here. This says home sales fall again as surging mortgage rates and rising prices discourage home buyers. So the sales of previously occupied U.S. homes in September fell for the 4th month in a row. Now, again, the key word here is previously occupied, right? These are existing homes that are already built. Existing home sales fell 2% last month from August to a seasonally adjusted annual rate of 3.96 million. It's the slowest sales pace since October of 2010, when the market was still choked by foreclosures following the housing bust several years earlier. Sales sank 15.4% compared with the same month last year and are down 21% through the first 9 months of the year versus the same period in 2022. So although prices really haven't adjusted, we are seeing the number of home sales that are happening decrease substantially. Despite the housing market slump, home prices kept climbing versus a year ago. The national median sales price rose 2.8% from September of last year to $394,000. It slipped 3.1% from August. Now, the key point, again, if we jump back over here, let's actually open this up. We're going to pull this up to September so we can get the information that they're talking about. If we come over here, we had 3,605 home sales. Again, a huge number compared to the 2,800 that we had here. And home sales, at least for the data set that I'm seeing here, home sales actually did decline just slightly here in Utah for the information that we're looking at. So that is a little bit different, but across the nation, median sales prices did actually rise. Yoon, who's the chief economist here for the National Association of Realtors, probably a little bit biased if we're honest. He said he expects mortgage rates will ease by next spring. Now, we're going to talk about that here in just a minute, but I want to scroll down here. House hunters who can afford to bypass financing and pay in cash are taking up a bigger share of the market. Last month, all cash deals accounted for 29% of home sales, whereas typically all cash transactions tend to represent about 20% of sales. So people have the cash, they're choosing to purchase a home using all cash at a higher rate, now 29% versus roughly 20% on a usual basis. Let's come over here. There's a couple things I want to talk about here in this article. For the U.S. to see any major price declines, something would need to rattle the larger economy to lead to job losses or a surge in home listings. All right, let's zoom out here and talk a little bit about what this actually means. Now, the reason why home prices are not really adjusting right now is because there's limited inventory in the market. When buyers don't have a whole lot to choose from, they can't be as picky as they normally would like to be, and therefore they are forced into a situation where they're going to pay the asking price that's out there. And typically the people who are selling homes in this market are doing so because they are choosing to do that, right? They're not in a position where they've been forced to make that home sale. Now, there is one thing that could change this landscape pretty drastically. If we saw a huge increase in the number of homes that are listed on the market, this could actually drive prices down. If we're going to see that, I think that's going to be driven by one particular thing. It's going to be driven by job losses. Right now, the U.S. economy, at least when it comes to jobs, is in a very healthy place. People have jobs right now. They're continuing to make paychecks. And in that situation, they're continuing to make the payment that they have on their home, and they're continuing to pay rent. Therefore, the landlords are continuing to bring in that money and pay the mortgage that they've got on their property. So right now, unless unemployment rises, I don't expect to see a huge increase in the number of homes that come onto the market. And that inventory inventory number is going to remain quite low. If we did see some changes here, then all else could change pretty drastically. Right now, Utah has one of the lowest unemployment rates across the country. I think we're ranked number 5 or number 6 last time I checked for unemployment here in the state, which means that yes, people have jobs. They're continuing to earn those paychecks and continuing to pay for their home. They might be stuck in their home. Maybe they can't move up to that bigger home or, sell their home and move somewhere else, but at least they're in a position where they can stay where they're at, continue making their payments, and that's causing the low inventory that we see out there in the market. If there was some changes here and we saw massive job losses in the market, this could actually lead more people who cannot afford the payment on their home to list their home for sale because they've got to get out of it, and then they're in a position where they really have to sell it because they can't make the payment on it and they don't want to foreclose, right? They don't want the bank to foreclose, and then they're in a position where they have to drop the price, and this is when we could see prices come crashing down. I do think the likelihood of that happening is pretty low, at least at this point in time. We might see some things change depending on what happens with the overall economy and the overall, global economy at this point. But right now, the US is in a pretty good spot when it comes to jobs that are out there in the market. Jumping back into the screen here, I want to talk about some other things here. We're going to talk about some sales data from new construction homes. New home sales rebounded 12.3% to a seasonally adjusted annual rate of 759,000 units last month. August sales pace was revised up to 676,000 from the previously reported 675. So this is for new home sales, which have increased over the last month. Economists polled by Reuters had forecast new home sales, which account for a small share of U.S. home sales, rebounding to a rate of 680,000 units. I just made another video about talking about this. There's actually a lot of people who are going towards new construction because of the opportunity that's there. There's so much limited inventory on existing homes that many of these buyers are choosing to go new construction, not only because they get a better selection of homes, but they get a brand new home, and oftentimes they can get closing cost credits or incentives from the builder from going and purchasing one of their homes. So that's something you want to consider. Make sure to reach out to me, call, text, or email anytime. My team and I love helping people from all across the world relocate here, as well as local people who already live in the area that are looking at doing, maybe buying a property or selling a property. I'd love to help you along in that journey. My information is here on the screen. Call, text, or email anytime. And let's talk about some more information here. Data last week showed home resales dropped to a 13-year low in September as soaring mortgage rates and tight supply combined to sideline first-time buyers from the market. The rate on the popular 30-year fixed mortgage surged to a nearly 23-year high of 7.63%. Now, lastly, on this little article here, the economists are still predicting home prices to decelerate next year, and they're forecasting house price growth to slow down to 2.8% year over year by the end of 2024. So despite everything that's happening out there in the market, national economists are still thinking that the home prices are going to increase. This makes for a very tough time in the market right now, and I think it's a very peculiar time because we're seeing all-time high prices, we're seeing interest rates at crazy high levels, and this is really putting people in a tight situation. And the one thing you have to remember is that I see a lot of people, especially real estate agents, especially mortgage lenders, people out there are saying, hey, interest rates have to come down next year. And unfortunately, that's just not true. I don't think there's anything that says interest rates have to come down, right? If the market is still going strong, if the economy is strong, if the stock market is strong, if people still have jobs, that's not a cause for interest rates to come down, right? I think if anything, there's a very good chance, this is my own personal opinion, so take it with a grain of salt. Of course, form your own opinion based on the information you have. But in my opinion, I think the interest rates will actually probably stay about where they're at for at least the next 6 to 9 months. I don't think there's any reason for them to come down. I think even if they do come down, it's only going to be maybe 0.5%, maybe 1% over the next 12 to 18 months. I think it's incredibly unlikely that interest rates will actually come down unless we see some massive changes either in our nation or globally with the economy. So with that being said, guys, I know we covered a ton of information here in this video. It was a long one. Thank you for sticking with me if you did. As always, please reach out to me if I can help in any way. Call, text, or email anytime. My information is here on the screen. And if you want to see a video talking about some of the best Utah neighborhoods, make sure to click that video right here and subscribe to the channel before you go. And with that said, we'll catch you guys in the next one.